Good evening, everyone. This is Michael, and this evening I'm substituting for Tuya, and will be, I think maybe the meditation that we have the most flexibility in is this meditation regarding the soul of nations. There are a lot of difficulties in the world at the moment, considering the elemental balance, fire, earth, air, and water, and we have a lot of problems with humanity worsening that condition. I'd like to read a little from The Destiny of the Nations. There's been some interesting things discussed. You may remember this section here where we looked at the Holy City and Sanat Kumara as its ruler. He's known as Melchizedek, and the masters are priests of the order of Melchizedek. It's the planetary head center, and the spiritual pineal gland is involved. The hierarchy, of course, is called the New Jerusalem, not the Jerusalem that we find as a city today, a modern city. No, something far deeper than that. It's the planetary heart center of which the Christ is the ruler, and the great love, wisdom, energy flows out of it. And then humanity is very interesting, sometimes called the planetary throat center, and sometimes in its higher brackets, we have humanity as the Ajna center, especially the new group of world servers among them, the city that stands four square. Now, Lucifer, it's another name for the solar angels, and in a way, the solar angels are ruling humanity, and human beings have to rise to the feet and the status of the solar angel, at least to its early grades. And this happens by the time the fourth initiation is taken. We, on our own higher turn of the spiral, we become an elemental, rather a deva, rather than an elemental. So we will be a creative, illumined group under the guidance of Lucifer, the host of solar angels. It's nothing to do with the devil and all that, It has to do with the true light bringers who fell out of compassion for animal man and immersed themselves into the being of animal man. It's very different from the way things are presented in the more orthodox religions. And we are the prodigal son, and all of us are attempting to return to the Father's home, to our monadic source, once we, kind of wake up and realize that we are living on the husks of life. So these are the three centers in the one in whom we live and move and have our being, the planetary logos. It's quite interesting what he says here. We have three major solar systems, one of which has transpired, and another of which is in process, ours. It's the second major, or fifth, in the series, and then the third major is coming up, well, really trillions of years ahead, and it will be the sixth in the series. But humanity, much of humanity, was prepared in the first solar system, and the principle of intelligence came into being, and there exists today on our planet a certain remnant of that earlier solar system, and some of the trouble caused in all of our human relations has to do with very advanced human beings who simply wanted to remain that and not become solar angels or any higher form of life, and they constitute those who are dedicated to the left-hand path, and they are now causing trouble in our solar system. In the second solar system, the hierarchy of love made its appearance, and that's the soul, you know, of our planet, and the soul of the solar logos, the soul of the planet Jupiter. They're all on the second ray, and so the Christ represents that. And then the will system, when Shambhala will be all-powerful, is the next one to come. We have a long way to wait until that time. We know very little, perhaps, about the will aspect of deity. So I think in the last presentation that I offered, anyway, Tuya and I kind of switch off on these now and then. I read this section. So 3 great centers there are, corresponding to the 3 great monadic rays, first, second, and third, corresponding to the 3 forms of government: monarchy, democracy, and socialism or communism, invented by humanity. And we're in the midst of trying to promote a democratic system in as many places of the world as can withstand that somewhat more developed form of governance. 3 governing ideologies, the Tibetan calls them. Old ideologies still persist. Subsidiary schools of thought are everywhere to be found. Distorted interpretations and travesties of reality abound on every hand, because such is our glamour and illusion. On all sides, the dead level of the people, the ignorant masses, you know, who haven't really awakened yet, you know, they may be just beginning, perhaps, to enter the hall of learning. The dead level of the people is played upon by these energies, and men become the victims of the exponents of these ideologies, past, present, and future. You know, it's oftentimes the dictatorial, demagogic types that command the masses, the unthinking masses of the people. But behind all this stands he whom we call the Lord of the world, that is Sanat Kumara. When all these temporary experiments have been tried, and when humanity has been led on in its consciousness from one stage of understanding and to another, and of recognized interrelation, the kingdom of God will be established upon earth, and the ruler of the earth will then work through the hierarchy to produce that synthetic, living, creative response from nature of which humanity is a part, which will enable each kingdom fully to reveal the glory of God. Well, this is the time when, in a sense, Sanat Kumara will walk the earth. He already is manifesting through the cosmic ethers, and if some of the books are to be believed, he's manifesting also through the systemic ethers, through the white island on the Gobi Desert, in the Gobi Desert, the more material aspect of Shambhala, but no lower. So there'll be a working through of Shambhala through the hierarchy, and the hierarchy through the various kingdoms, which will then really be able to demonstrate their function. That's what we're trying to work towards, that a fully released humanity can help the lower kingdoms demonstrate their true function and the true glory of the divine purpose and plan. As yet, it isn't the case, but there are many people working with the lower kingdoms who are really bringing the best out of them. It's one thing, I would say, to eat the animals, and another thing to lead them on to greater intelligence. It's quite obvious, isn't it? So obviously we're not predators, we're not meant to be predators here, but we're meant to be instructors. The time of fruition lies far ahead, but humanity is experimenting, or is the subject of experiment. It's both. Both is true. Both are true. It is exploiting or being exploited. It's learning the lessons of an enforced obedience, sort of the third pedal in the hall of ignorance teaches us that lesson, or the dangers of selfish license. And that's pretty well, fought out in the fifth pedal, where people become very egotistical and dictatorial and don't see much besides their own personality. Humanity is victimized by powerful personalities in every land, and without exception, or it is being guided in right directions, and again, without exceptions, by the emissaries and disciples of either Shambhala or the hierarchy. All vaunted freedom or vaunted control is but the temporary reaction of a humanity which is swept by ideas, if we can respond to them, of course, controlled by ideals. Many more are controlled by ideals than respond to ideas, and impulsed by selfishness, impregnated by hates, and yet all the time is struggling to express the higher and better qualities and to free itself from the thraldom of ancient evil, the slavery of ancient codes, and the curse of ancient habits of thought and living. That's pretty strong language, isn't it? Well, we've been through a lot, and as DK is fond of telling us, well, maybe not fond, but he certainly tells us all of us have sinned, and humanity as a whole has sinned grievously. That's a very potent word. So it is what is happening behind the scenes to mankind as a whole, which is of moment. It is the unfoldment of the human consciousness which counts with the hierarchy, and that unfoldment in response to the presented conditions in any country or countries. Let me assure you that under the pressure of modern life, remember this is written 70 years ago, it's even more now, the pressure that is, let me assure you that under the pressure of modern life, under the strain of the imposed present conditions and civilization, plus the mental concern, the terror of the marching armies, the thunder of the many voices, and the stress of the worldwide economic stringency, the human consciousness is rapidly awakening from its long sleep. That really needs to be reiterated. It's not necessarily pleasant to wake up. Sometimes dreams help us escape, much more pleasant, generally speaking. But we have to wake up to reality. The great and fundamental reality which you call the, quote, human state of mind is just beginning to focus itself upon the things which matter and to express itself in a living fashion. That is the factor of moment and not the happenings in any particular country. So it's only as these countries can contribute to the welfare of humanity as a whole that there is real advancement. We're not looking for one particular country to be the leading or the championing country. Not at all. So again, I would remind you, he says, that all that is occurring is an evidence of energy and expressive of force. And we have to learn these energies, obviously. It's our alphabet. The constellational, zodiacal, planetary, and ray energies. We really have to learn these. And I trust that every serious student of the Tibetan will apply himself or herself to this. So this is a factor never to be forgotten. It is essential that you recognize them as existing. We have an opportunity to do that at each full moon, maybe new moon, and one can feel those present energies. There is little that you as individuals or as groups can do about them, so high is their source, beyond seeing to it that there is nothing in you which could make you, unimportant as you may be, giving us the perspective here, a focal point for hate, separation, fear, pride, and other characteristics which feed the fires, which threaten to bring disaster to the world. Each of you can aid more than you can guess through the regulation of thought and ideas and the cultivation of a loving spirit, and through the general use of the great invocation whereby these forces and energies so sorely needed can be invoked. So he's definitely relating us to the larger sphere, to the heights of our particular planetary scheme, to other planetary schemes in our solar system. He's even relating us to that which lies beyond our solar system and can be considered originating in great constellations of the zodiac. We have now considered three major energies which are pouring into our planetary life at this time through the three major centers. They have to, really become real to us. We have to think in terms of humanity, hierarchy, and Shambhala. Obviously, it's easier to think in terms of what's nearer, but okay. We know the objective. It remains for us now to consider the energy of the two minor rays. This is very interesting what he does with this, and probably we'll have to wait till the next time till when there's a reading to deal with this sixth and seventh ray. But he really does contrast them and shows us what is expected of us in the new age. We're still in a turbulent time when the sixth ray is fading out and seventh ray is coming in, as it seems to have been doing. Well, he gives us a date of kind of 1675, but ever since Francis Bacon emerged and what does it say, rang the bell which called the wits together in the early 17th century, a great exemplar of the seventh ray was present among us and influencing humanity accordingly. So the sixth and seventh rays, which are in many ways of more immediate moment to the masses and of tremendous effectiveness. Well, the farther down on the manifestational scale you go, the more obvious the effect of the energies. So 6 and 7 are at the tail end of the 7 rays. One of these is of moment because of its pronounced hold, and because of the crystallization it has produced, particularly in the world of thought. The Catholic Church has a sixth ray mind. Think of that. Now, on a much, much higher turn of the spiral, the Buddha is said to have had, and we don't know now, but a sixth ray mind, certainly not crystallized, but inspired by tremendous idealism. So this crystallization of the sixth ray has its effect in the world of thought, and the other, because its hold and its power, its influence, and its effects will be of an increasing momentum. I think maybe we'll have to wait till the 21st century is pretty well elapsed before any kind of almost disappearance of the sixth ray and the Piscean energy are occurring. And so another 80 years, but there'll be a waning of those energies, and those who uphold them will be seen increasingly as holding humanity back, as being in a reactionary position. One of these rays is potent in producing the necessity for the present chaos. I suppose that's the sixth ray, and there's a certain ignoring of the state of form and its wise use that comes with being on the sixth ray. In the old commentary it says, why do you kick the earth like a ball? Why don't you love it? Why don't you? Well, but sixth ray is always trying to get away from the earth. It's got so much elevatory Neptune, you might say. It doesn't want to be, it wants to be abstract and held away from concretion. The other ray, seventh, is potential and holds in its activity the seeds of the future. This is a fact of great general interest and really practical import. It takes us, moreover, into the realm of prevision. I would have you remember at this point that no prevision is divorced entirely from the past, but that there must always be the seed of truth. The law of cause and effect holds good eternally, and particularly so in the realm of spiritual insight, so rapidly developing at this time, which enables the seer to see the future as it may be and to forecast coming eventualities. And there are several ways in which such prevision can, during the next 3 centuries, be developed by the race of men. So we will deal next time. I felt the necessity to conduct a little review there. We'll be dealing with prevision. And let's see where we are here. It'll be the 14th. Excuse me. This will be the 14th of September. And I'd like to just get that 14 September 19 reading begins. There's so many ideas of value that help us deeply in our meditation and study, scattered throughout these books. And we simply have to learn to encompass them and digest them. So important. So I hope that we are picking up what lies behind and within international relations. This is going to be very interesting about prevision. Some people are very much along the oracular line, and even more that will come forward now. And after just a little while, next time, we'll be dealing with the contrast between the sixth ray and the seventh ray. Be quite interesting, I think, because this is one of those places where he really goes into that contrast and the impacts on politics and on civilization and culture. Okay, so there we are on that, and And let's see. Let's. I'm not going to do, really a full meditation entirely here. Just want to be practical about it at the moment. And I just want to say that we have a lot of trouble in the world. Your heart goes out to these people. I don't know if you've seen what 185-mile-an-hour winds can do to islands where houses are not particularly made of bricks, and even those that are made of more sturdy material have suffered extreme damage. The combination of the wind and the water, out of control, really. And the fires are raging in Siberia, and we're getting into the fire season now in California, and everybody has been concerned about the Amazon rainforest, with debate going on. Is this rainforest really the lungs, as it were, of the planet, or is oxygen arising all the time from the ocean and so forth? But nevertheless, it's a devastation of a great producer of what is needed by the planet. Certainly, a great deal of the oxygen correlated actually with the soul is arising from that vast area, and humanity being so short-sighted, so selfish in some of its leaders, just think in terms of one life, and mostly their own, and they really don't care what happens to others in the future. So, go breathe in that white light. The light of the soul, let us say. Allowing it to pervade our mind and the other aspects of our personality. Doing that imaginatively, until we really begin to feel together that we represent our own soul, and since the soul is group conscious, the soul of the group, and beyond that, even coming into touch with hierarchy, which is in a way the soul of our planet, something working towards unity and a better balance, And all of this is done in cooperation with the Great Lord, the head of the hierarchy, and in so many ways the heart of the hierarchy. And we are gathered in His name, of course. We don't have to be in the same room anymore, We're in the same meditative space, and we say aloud or to ourselves, and trying to understand the meaning, we have gathered in your name, Lord Maitreya, be with us. maybe we have some idea of what the great Lord would see for humanity, certainly a far more enlightened and capable humanity, and far more illumined, far more loving, far more able to carry out in little ways and larger ways something of the divine plan. And he is a Lord of balance. His higher prototype is the Spirit of Peace, or the Lord of Equilibrium, obviously related to Libra. And now just think, the elemental forces are out of control. So let's have some meditation on helping to restore harmony and control to the conditions which allow the violent winds to arise and the huge ocean waves and surges which carry many away and destroy them. And the fires which are raging, killing animals and human beings who cannot escape, as was the case with this terrible sinking of a diving ship off the coast of California, just horrific circumstances. And of course the deadly earthquakes that show up now and then and are predicted for the future, in the huge earth changes which are predicted for the western United States, California and maybe elsewhere. We live in a time of great change. Some of it is just due to disturbance, and some of it is part of the plan, because you never can move into a new configuration without changing the old one. But at least let's have some moments of silent meditation as we address the four elements and seek to bring a degree of harmony and balance to them, at least not to contribute to their worsening as humanity, ignorant, selfish, seems to be doing. So go into your thought and fire, earth, air, and water. Try to see harmony restored and control over these elements restored. We don't need a worsening of hurricanes and the appearance of uncontrollable wildfires and conditions of the oceans with melting glaciers and rising sea levels. We don't need to contribute to that. So let's have some deep thought on that according to your own promptings. think, there will be many changes simply because our particular planetary scheme, well, let's say, our chain is the focus of a kind of a fourth subsidiary initiation, and we know how drastic that can be and how it produces a realignment and a detachment from our identifications with form. So to a degree, some of this cannot be avoided, but let us not unnecessarily contribute and add to the peril, which, of course, could, in the not too distant future, bring about the death of millions upon millions of people, and very much, I think, the underprivileged people who cannot protect themselves and do not have the resources, financial or otherwise, to protect themselves. There must be suffering, as DK tells us, in a treatise on cosmic fire, that the planetary logos is passing through big things, and we as cells in that logos, ours is the task to suffer. And out of suffering, of course, arises purification, because we are, or will be, graduates of this school of releasing sorrow and purifying pain. But we could upset the balance. Now, the Christ has a great Libra component to his presence. He is the Prince of Peace, and we can have greater peace between the elements so that a balance can be restored more rapidly and the suffering can be reduced. We just have not to be foolish and selfish. Well, friends, I think, that's as far as I'll go for right now. I'm grateful for your presence, and thank you for being here. And we will move on tomorrow to the attracting financial resources for the work of the hierarchy. Also on the evening schedule, it'll be a broadcast, so the link will be the same as this one. The crux of the Earth situation, what prevents the plan from manifesting is pretty much a financial one, and that has to do with our willingness to sacrifice. Well, once we're really sure of our values, pretty much we'll be ready to sacrifice the lesser for the greater, but we so often mistake what is lesser for what is greater. That's a big mistake. So we will progress esoterically and operationally on the outer plane as well, and we'll, be part of the great army of the Christ. Maitreya's army, says Master M, numbers 1 million. I don't know about the figures there, but it's a great army, and the great means of accomplishment in that army is the energy of love, energy of wisdom, energy of intelligence, and energy of the divine will. So forward we go, friends, and many blessings to you all from Tuya and from myself. And we'll just keep up our steady application. You know, it's interesting, whereas the first ray goes crashing through things, irregularly, let us say, the second ray is said to work without let-up or leeway, relentlessly onward. That's what we have to do, and be counted among those who really do help the hierarchy lead humanity into the Aquarian age. See you tomorrow.